Welcome to Deep Thought. Most people move in a pattern. Most people move in a pattern. And you know how we do on Deep Thought. Some stuff I just throw out there just for people to think about. And one of the things I've noticed, because I've talked about reading people before, but just looking at the pattern that a person will move in, a person, a group's, whatever. And I'm gonna tell you what. I might be given 8 to 10 minutes on how to move in that pattern, or picking up on it, or even introducing it. But there's whole companies out there. There's whole companies, firms, whatever you want to call them, the government, intelligence agencies. Oh, they paying attention to it on a way, way larger scale, because they paying attention to what people going to do, what they're going to buy, whatever, to the point they can predict it. Like, let me use the example of grocery stores. When you have a new grocery store open up in a particular area, it's never just random. It is never random. In fact, there's a restaurant that just opened near me, and I'm not going to advertise it, but they sell a lot of vegan food there. And I'm like looking at the area, and I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of vegans moving in. There's a lot of vegans and, people really concerned about how they eat moving in. And I'm just looking at the pattern. Because let's just say when I moved to this county well over a decade ago, it's getting close. I've been here close. It's closing in on 2 decades, closing in on it. It had a different vibe to it, but it's totally different. And if I'm looking at the people, I'm like, a lot of progressives and everything. A lot of people who would go to yoga studios, eat vegan food and everything. But trust me, somebody was paying attention. Because if they put a restaurant or grocery store, any type of store, it's never just random. Like, it might be random with somebody small, don't know what they're doing, and they just happen to put a store someplace. But when you talk about major corporation, they'll have some people in it who they'll just look at. They'll like try to figure out who's living there, what they're buying, everything. Maybe even walk through or something, which is something I advise people to do if they want to set up a brick and mortar business. Like, if you're going to go to a mall or area, just walk through, pay attention to the people. Because I remember when I first moved here, I wanted to open up a book kiosk. Well, the mall I went to already had a bookstore, so it was just like, okay. But then I looked at the people and I said, that's not the type of people here who would buy what I would be selling. And that was cool. That was cool. But you want to pay attention to it. Because most people, here's the best way to say it. There ain't no nicer way to say it. Most people are asleep. Most people have a pattern. Even some of us. Think about when we drive someplace that we're familiar with. We're not halfway awake. There's a lot of people who drive to jobs because they drive the same way every day. They're not awake. They're not paying attention and everything. Most of us get stuck into a pattern. We're not looking at what we're doing and everything. And then, like I said, of course, you got different agencies, groups, firms studying those patterns so they can make money, or even, I'm even voting patterns. I'll leave it at that. Even voting patterns. They looking at that and they're like, oh, okay, we can figure out what they're going to do and everything. When you're paying attention to people, look for the pattern. That's one thing I look for. Whenever I look at individuals, I look for their patterns. Like, what are their patterns? What do they do? And everything, especially when it's regarding you. I look at the individuals. Wherever I'm living, I'm looking at the patterns there. What kind of patterns am I seeing? What are they doing? Where are they going? You know, you want to pay attention to all of those little things. All of those little things. Because that's just the nature of people. You know, it's like even how we eat. Like, you get most people, I'm going to say most is they like animals. You know how some animals, they'll graze in the same area, hunt in the same area, whatever. What do? We eat at the same restaurants, move in the same pattern and everything. I noticed that with my sons, if they ever want to hang out, you know, when they want to hang out with daddy, you know how it is. Actually, we're close that way, but they tend to want to go to the same places, you know, same patterns and everything. And I'm saying most people. Now, some people are very conscious of how they do stuff, and they'll switch up, which I would actually recommend. Switch up just to see some new stuff. Like every now and then myself, I'll drive someplace different. I'll make a different turn or something just to keep myself out of the pattern. And even then, there's still some patterns if anybody were to study my behavior or anything that they would notice. Because it's easy to get stuck in. It's easy to get stuck in doing stuff at a certain time, going certain places, eating certain things and everything, to the point where if you change that pattern, people can get upset. People can get very upset. But if you study it, you can learn it, you can figure it. And like I said, you got groups that, like for the umpteenth time, I'm giving y'all some clues for something. Y'all might even notice the pattern. You might notice the pattern where people will do or go in certain areas and stuff. Indeed. Well, I'll talk about that later this week. I was about to like use an example, but I'll talk about that later this week. But understanding those patterns is very important, because you want to, really it helps you. It helps you. If you know the pattern of, like say you live in a, I'm gonna say not so great neighborhood. If you know the pattern on how like somebody's gonna rob somebody or something like that, that's a very good thing. You know, it's like, oh no, there's that pattern. No, okay, usually happens around this time. All right, you seeing that, you can protect yourself. You know, knowing the patterns of your mate. You trying to mating with somebody, or you in a relationship, knowing the patterns, knowing what they like to do and everything. You know, you can get them gifts, so you could also see when some problem is happening. I mean, there's so much. There's so much, but I'm gonna tell you the truth, it's an important thing. And especially with groups, because that's one of the ways that theys exercise control over people, because they understand their patterns. They understand what they're going to do, what they're going to buy, everything. And, you know, I wasn't joking. I was not joking when I said you get groups who will study that. You know, government agencies, economic firms, or something. You know, when I look at what's being put in this neighborhood, I'm like, oh, okay. In this area, it's like, oh, okay. You seeing something right there. You seeing something. Like, I would tell anybody, like in this general area, if you poor, you might have to just move on out. It is what it is. So anyway, something for y'all to think about, okay? The patterns, pay attention to them. Something for you to think about. So anyway, I'll get back with y'all. Peace and blessings.